Welcome in, everyone, to the first episode of Seahawks Aftermath. This is going to be a show that happens every weekend, or every week, I should say, after a Seahawks game with myself and Michael Thompson. We're going to basically kind of give a 24-hour perspective after we've had a chance to kind of cool down, look at the game a little bit more, hear Mike Macdonald talk, hear some of the other, if other coaches talk at some point and players, and kind of get a vibe of where this team truly is at after, either a win or a victory, because sometimes we can get too high after victory and sometimes we can get too low. So we've got a bunch of different topics to go over tonight. Me and Mike will go over, and we will get into those topics right after this.
Touchdown Seahawks! Oh my word!
Well, guys, welcome in, and this is definitely kind of an interesting day today, listening to some of the stuff that's taken place with the Mike Macdonald press conference, and we'll start with the day after big takeaway. So first off, obviously, Mike, the Nick Eamon-Warry injury update. Not exactly what Seahawk fans were kind of hoping for after we had heard post-game that this was going to be potentially just an ankle sprain. Everything was looking pretty positive, and we're going, okay, maybe it's a week. Now I find out today that it's a high ankle sprain, and they are looking at the possibility of IR for Nick Eamon-Warry. What kind of feeling did that give you for the next 4 weeks, per se, for the Seattle defense?
Yeah, a nice little bit of salt on the wounds after a really tough loss yesterday. A guy that we traded up for that I think all of us kind of considered was our second first-round pick. We got him at pick 35, and just loved everything we've heard in training camp. And in the first 5 plays, you could see it, right? You could see just in that moment, the play that he got hurt on, that's what you brought him in for, right? Was to make plays, and just got rolled up on. And like we said, it sounded like it wasn't going to be a high ankle sprain. And then a day later, Mike kind of had to walk that back and says it does sound like it is. And yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he does go on IR, just because he is a rookie, and everything that kind of, you're looking at the schedule and stuff, it makes some sense. And unfortunately, with what we saw from Okada yesterday, I think this definitely does impact the defense. This was a guy that every time Mike Macdonald talked about him, you could just see the glow in his eyes, the giddiness, right? Like, this was a chess piece type of player for him that he was really excited to use, even as a rookie. And now you may not have him for 2, 3, or now if you go IR, you might not have him. You might not see him for a month or even more. We'll see. And so, just a bummer, because you're a week away probably from getting Nwosu back, and it was like, man, it'd be really cool to kind of see this whole defense come together. After what I thought was a mostly promising game yesterday, not perfect by any stretch of the means. And again, what would have happened if he did play the whole game? Does McCaffrey run free on those receiving routes as much as he did? Does the linebackers get exposed as much as they did, other than Ernest Jones and stuff? And, just a real bummer for a guy that you hate it when it's a rookie, right? Because you always feel like when it's the rookies, it's more of a bigger deal than it is sometimes, for a guy that's been in the league for a year or two and stuff. And so hopefully it'd be great if he can avoid IR. At this point, I'd be expecting him to go on IR, but hopefully he's healthy and back and able to come back as soon as possible and help out this defense, because I think he is a very key piece to this defense making a jump from last year.
Well, and the thing is if you do put him on IR, he's going to get the designation to return most likely. So you already have Christian Haynes with that designation, it sounds like already. That would be your 2 players. I think you're only allowed 2. I may be wrong. It may be 3 players you're allowed. So you're now going to use up that. I feel like the whole thing about IR is seeing if he can come back in under 2 weeks. I feel like they're aiming for that Cardinals game. If he can make it back for that Cardinals game, then they probably won't put him on the IR with designation to return. If it's going to be longer than that, which is why I think Mike said it's going to be the next few days here of them figuring it out with imaging and all those other sort of things, I think they're going to put him to IR so they can get D'Anthony Bell onto this, roster with, not having to cut somebody. You can do that way and then promote him, and you're in a good spot there. The thing I'll say, though, is in Mike's press conference today, and even in his show on 710, the one thing that stood out to me was this may have been the most short-answered, just simple-toned Mike Macdonald we have ever heard. Like, you can tell this particular game, and I think Mike Salk asked him something along the lines of, how much does this game bother you? Like, how much, does it sting, kind of a thing? And when Mike answered that, it was almost kind of like, are you kidding me kind of answer. Like, yes, this stings. Yes, this bothers me greatly that we let this game slip away from us. And the other thing that I'll say about this is you could almost tell in Mike's Monday press conference as well how much the defensive game plan changed because of the Nick Eamon-Wari injury. How much they couldn't do a lot of the big nickel and the three safeties they wanted to run. They did try it with Okada. It wasn't working. So they had to get out of it. They had to put Spoon back inside more of the nickel. You saw Job come on the field more. And I'll say one other thing, to kind of on this defensive front of this, I think Reek Woolen's starting job is very much in jeopardy now. After his comments today about, Job in his press conference about that's a guy we need to get more reps and find ways to get him more reps. I think there's very much this could be an ongoing thing now where Reek could fall down the step chart very quickly based off of that whole situation that transpired late in the game.
Yeah, I mean, you think about it, you have Macdonald who, I mean, let's be honest, like he is a legit defensive mastermind that is a defensive coordinator by heart that is learning what it takes to be a head coach, right? This isn't a guy that's come through any other way other than being a defensive coordinator. And so like his group was carrying that game. His group was, I mean, that was for all the 3rd and 5s that we gave up in the time of possession and the death by 1,000 paper cuts, like still like we were getting after Purdy. Were we getting the sacks? No, but we were forcing the turnovers. We were pressuring him. Like the game felt like, and again, we'll talk about this later, the decision not to kick the field goal and instead of going for it on 4th and 1, like Mike had belief in his defense. And then it essentially based off of 2 plays and however you want to describe that play. 2 critical mistakes, mental breaks, lazy, lack of effort, like however all the fan base wants to describe those 2 mistakes by Reek Woolen, he essentially kind of kicked away an opportunity for a dominant defensive performance in week 1 that if Seattle, forces a field goal there or never even gives up that big play to Ricky Pearsall and we win this game, what was it, 13-10, we win that game that way and like basically early 2000s, 90s defensive slugfest, like, Mike has that on his plate to kind of pump his chest. And instead Reed kind of gave that away from a defensive side. The offense also, didn't get the job done. And so I think because of that, Mike as a defensive coordinator says, hey, like, I'm learning to see the big picture, but Reek, like, can't have that. And if I have to make an example out of you, I'm going to make an example again. And I wrote about this today for field goals in my 4-down territory. It's a fork in the road moment for Woolen. Like there's 2 ways you can go about this because Mike has set the tone talking about Job today that, hey, this is a real competition. And that was the most praise I've ever heard for a backup before, probably other than Bobo. Earlier this year when there was questions about whether Bobo was going to make the team and stuff, and Mike loved what he saw from Josh Job, and I think as much of that was a praise of Job, it was also a, hey Reek, like this is now real, like we're not going to put up with the mistakes that were made last year. And this game, a huge chunk of this blame pie falls on what happened in that last drive, which is unfortunate because I thought Woolen actually played a pretty good game other than all those plays. And this is what I want from my coach. I don't know how you feel about it, but like I wouldn't want to stand for that. I mean, this is a home division loss. to your big brother, unfortunately, is how I would describe them right now. And you can't let mistakes like that happen.
No, you can't. And the other thing for me was on 710 today, Mike Salt kind of asked Mike Macdonald about the Reek Woolen plays. Obviously, he's going to. That's his job as as a sports host, is to ask those things. And the one thing that Mike said about the Ricky Pearsall play, he goes, Reek was really good in it. He was there until the last few steps, and he didn't play it. And he basically said it's a technique thing, but for Reek, it's a fundamental thing.
And that's not what you want to hear.
That was something that really stood out to me, was when he turned and said that for Reek, that is a fundamentals thing.
Right.
That's something for a guy that's playing for his essentially next NFL contract. Not something you want your head coach saying going into year 4 for you, that you are still having fundamental issues covering that type of play. The other one, like he said with the one in the end zone too, he even said, he's like, that's just something we got to go get the ball. We got to attack the ball. And he's like, we'll have to watch it and see what occurred, but we got to go make that play. We can harp and kind of go back and forth on that particular side of it. But the other thing, that I want to kind of talk about is the offense. And what I found that was really interesting is I did my little deep dive into the stats side of things and, the concept, the passing concept stuff. And we saw, when we thought we were getting this offense, the run game is something we'll get into as well. But the thing that drove me nuts in this game, and I've rewatched it, is, Mike, do you know how many play action passes were called in this game?
I believe, I think I saw the notification. I believe it was 2, right? Only 2 play actions were called, and that's under center, right? Under center, or was that total?
That's total. 2 play action calls were all game. There was, out of the rest of it, so out of the 23 attempts, 22 of them were straight drop back. And that is something that we talked about with Sam Darnold and this, way of not protecting him, but allowing him to get comfortable. He's great off of play action. He's great off of the boot. None of that was called in this game. You asked him to be a pure dropback. And the thing that makes me kind of question this game plan's decision-making by Clint Kubiak is that last play of the game with Nick Bosa, where he bull rushes Abe Lucas and there's the strip sack and everything goes wrong on that one play. That's a really good rep by, Nick Bosa. Yeah. If you're moving the pocket more and more throughout a game, a D lineman cannot tee off as easily at.
No, he has to think more.
Quarterback? Yeah, where's the quarterback going to be in this pocket? I don't know. But if I know, because I'm getting a lot of drop back, it was a lot of the same issues we saw last year with Grubb and Geno. If you're constantly dropping back, D linemen can kind of figure out that pinpoint of where the hitch into the pocket is and the climb, and they can kind of maneuver themselves. And Bosa's a good elite level, I should say, defensive edge rusher in the NFL. He's going to get a play once in now and then, and that's what happened. What I'm kind of annoyed about on X and stuff, and I'm going to make this clear, and people may disagree with me and hate me for what I'm about to say, this whole narrative that Darnold was awful in this game. Sam Darnold was not the reason we lost this football game. Sam Darnold did not play so badly like Sam Howell did against the Green Bay Packers, which some people have made comparisons to, or, other quarterbacks. He wasn't that bad. Yeah, okay, he doesn't have 300 yards passing, but he's not meant to in this offense. He, didn't turn the ball over minus the strip sack. He didn't throw an interception. He played an okay game. And that's fine for your first week 1 NFL game. Like, not many quarterbacks played that well this weekend. Like, by most standards, you look at a lot of them, they were middle of the pack. Yes, Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson had a phenomenal weekend in their Sunday night game. But Sam Darnold is not the reason the Seahawks lost this game. A bigger reason the Seahawks lost this game is they got away from their identity of running the football, of play action. And Mike Macdonald alluded to it today in his press conference. We didn't do enough play action. We didn't do a lot of the things that we need to do to be successful. And he even said in 710 too, which is our biggest issue, or 2 numbers or 2 stats, which was time of possession and third down conversion rate. Those are the 2 telling numbers in this game. If Seattle's any closer to getting those 50-50, where it's, closer in time of possession, it's not 30 or 40 to 20 minutes basically in retrospect between the 49ers and the Seahawks. If it's more of like a, if we're talking 30-30 split, then Seattle's probably in a better spot. And if it's, hey, Seattle out of their 10, opportunities on third down, complete, get 5 of them, again, you're in a better situation. There were a lot of things that went wrong, but Sam Darnold is not the reason the offense failed or didn't score enough points. A lot of it comes down to the scheme and not following their identity, which I think you will see more of.
Yeah, I think you definitely saw that that group on X of those content creators and those personalities that we all know, and a lot of them are great at what they do and they're great people, but they're definitely in that camp, and they were super excited to take off their Seahawk jersey and put on their, Gino and Pete anti-Sam Darnold jersey, whatever that jersey looks like. I guess that's a Raiders jersey right now. But and you know what? I'm not the biggest PFF guy. I think that there is some good value in it, and then there's some stuff that's just out of whack. And so I think it's a good, valuable tool, but shouldn't be like your do or die. But man, X sure got real quiet when Sam Darnold's PFF grade came out, didn't it? Highest graded player, was he 82, 83 or something like that?
Well, Dan Vians has it right here for us, and thanks, Dan, from
Thank
Seahawks
you, Dan.
for being in the chat. Per PFF, 4th highest graded passer this weekend, 3rd best time to throw, and 0 turnover-worthy plays, which was something that everyone was terrified of when it came to Sam Darnold.
Yeah, and if you guys were watching our show yesterday, I think Bryce was definitely the more. I mean, he's pissed, but he's the more calm of the two of us. Where I was kind of getting myself worked up, and we'll talk about what exactly I got worked up on, and we'll hit that later. I think I've already hinted at with that 4th and 1, which is definitely still with me, but I understand it a little bit more now. But you look at Sam, that PFF grade looked pretty good. I thought he was accurate with the ball. I think, again, we talked about that one wheel route he missed. JSN got bumped. Not enough to be a called a penalty. I would have been pissed if I was the Niners and that got called. I also would not have been surprised if that play did get called in that wheel route. And again, he probably threw that a split second too early. You would know more than I would on that. And other than that, I thought he looked really good. And there was a couple times where he got pressured into an errant throw. But other than that, I thought he played really well. And there's a couple things that I think were, again, a day later, the aftermath. That's why we do this show. Is you think about it. He put that. I understand Cooper Kupp stumbled, right? But that was another moment where if Cooper Kupp catches that ball, I think he probably runs for at least another 7-8 yards at a minimum. I mean, you look at that all 22, like if he can get that separation from that trailing corner and make one man miss, he might have ran for a while. Okay. And all of a sudden you're looking at the ball first down in plus territory, like you're on their side of the field. The stats start to look a little bit better there. You look at the JSN bubble screen. It looked like that was a play that we were going in for a first down. I believe JSN was almost going for a first down. Again, that would have put us in San Francisco territory before that ball got fumbled. Those are 2 drives where, who knows, the time of possession might have completely changed, right? You could have had 7 to 12 minutes flip towards the Seahawks on both of those drives. And definitely I don't want to put guarantee points, but I think there's a real shot. At worst, you're giving away 3 or 6 points if those are 2 field goal drives. Again, the Sam Darnold numbers look way, way different if Cooper Kupp catches that ball and if JSN doesn't fumble that ball, right? And maybe that leads into the wide zone rhythm and like what we talked about with the 49ers of past, like they are tough when they get into a rhythm, when they get into that script. And it just felt we never got into that. And Clint, was he spooked by Saleh? Was Saleh game planning to be like, hey, I'm taking away all of your bootlegs? Like, it definitely felt like that. It felt like Saleh was like, hey, if there's one thing I'm taking away from you, Clint, because I remember you and stuff, is like, I'm taking away your bootlegs. Like, your play action's gone. I have a hard time, even if, I feel like that's something every defensive coordinator would want to do. And obviously Saleh has more of experience versus that scheme than probably anyone else. But just was odd. And then again, we're talking about, Sam Darnold looked magnificent in the 2-minute drill, right? Both times looked really good. You're talking about a freak play where Nick Bosa shows why he is that guy. And he took your starting newly paid right tackle and pushed him, 8 yards, feet, whatever you want to call it, into a play where Donald, I wish Darnold was looking over the middle because I think it was Cooper Kupp running right over the middle, wide open. I think last night I said JSN, but that was Cooper Kupp. Like wide open, sucks, and Darnold does need to, as you know, like needs to be able to understand his surroundings and feel that pressure coming, especially on his right side. That's something that I know that you guys talk about. You have to feel that. You have to feel that and you have to maneuver around that. And that's a lesson learned. Okay. That's his first full game with that guy as his right tackle. And just again, I think there was a lot to like from Sam and from that offense. They just never were able to get into that rhythm, and they never went to what worked in that first drive. And I know you were talking about quotes. The one quote I wanted to bring up that Mike Macdonald talked about was with the running game. He said, it seemed to me that when we targeted it and we were all on the same page, we were doing a lot of good stuff. When we have some indecisiveness, which I think I know who he's talking about. I think we all know who we're talking about there. It felt like that's when things got twisted a little bit, but a lot of positives. Guys are finishing the plays the right way and a lot of stuff that we can build on moving forward. Again, rewatching the game, calming down a little bit. We definitely pissed that game away with some terrible mistakes and fluky plays that went against us. Felt like 7 things had to go against us for us to lose that game, and all 7 of them did. But I think there's pieces there, and I think Mike made it very clear, we're going to get back under center. We're going to run the football. We're going to get some play action. Will that work against a really potentially good defense in Pittsburgh? We'll find out, but no better test to look at than going on the road into Pittsburgh next week.
Well, and to continue that Mike Macdonald discussion, when he talked about the run game there, Mike, he goes, there's things that we got to get cleaned up as we go. We're never going to play a perfect football game. That's why the effort and physicality is so important, because a lot of times that makes up for the lack of detail here or there. They've got good players too. They're allowed to go make plays. They're allowed to game plan, so on and so forth. That's why the game of football is so great. It's so back and forth. It's just the battles of will. When we're on our stuff and we're rolling, I think we're pretty dang good. And that's what the issue is. I think he looks at it going, we didn't truly commit to what we wanted to do as a philosophy and as an identity. We did it in spurts, but it wasn't consistent. It was like a roller coaster. It was like this the whole game. That needs to level out. You can't have such valleys where it's like, cool, we're not running the ball a certain way for a quarter and a half, and then we'll go back to it. It's like you have to stay within those things. And, the one thing he did say too was, this is from John Boyle's article of the press conference. He goes, the Seahawks didn't use much play action or QB rollouts, generally considered key elements of this style of offense. Something Macdonald said he'd like to see change moving forward. We need action more. We need more movement. So we'll call it and we'll execute it when it's called. If your head coach is now calling that out, saying we need that, that is a massive indictment on this game plan that you went into. Like, why wasn't it a part of it?
Yeah, I think you can make the case, other than Reek Woolen, that the biggest, I know we're going to talk about winners and losers, but from a coaching perspective, like, I don't know how you walk away from these press conferences and these interviews today without being like, man, like, did Clint just get de-pantsed essentially by his former team? Because Macdonald didn't say a lot positively about it either and stuff. And it sounds like a defensive coach that is like, I did my job, and that side of the ball could have done it, and they chose not. They failed. Yeah. And that's literally what the title of my article today was. The Seahawks failed their first test, and there's no other way around it. Clint Kubiak failed his first test in a game where Macdonald said, I'm going to give you the lead from the first minute of the second quarter until the final minute and a half of the game. You just need to run what we run. You need to do what we do, what I brought you here for, what I fired Ryan Grubb for. And for whatever reason, and I don't know, maybe we'll hear more from Clint over the next day or so, but I want to know, like, what happened there. It is a little concerning to have your head coach already be saying those things about your brand new. He's not a brand new OC. Like, we're not talking about like a brand new guy that like is getting an early start. Like, Clint's been around. Like, he's a veteran. Like, not a ton of experience, but he's a veteran. And again, it just felt very similar to what Pete did to Schottenheimer after Chicago in 2018. After week 2, it was like, hey, we're not doing this shit. Like we're changing the course. And I think Seattle went 11-4 the rest of the way. And hopefully that's the kind of run we have next coming up. But that also, like, I felt like that cost Brian Schottenheimer, like, some time and experience, and it just affected a little bit of his future. It was Seattle, and eventually it worked out with him going to Dallas. But just again, Clint to have that said about a Kubiak after week 1 was very concerning.
To me, it's Darrell Bevel had the same thing in 2011 when he came in. They had that game in Pittsburgh, and it was the same thing. They got too pass happy. The same kind of thing happened. And Tavares Jackson got beat up in that game, and Pete kind of came out and said the same thing. It's very much, I feel like you've got this kind of pendulum right now in the NFL where it's kind of swinging back to old school football. And not like what I mean by old school, not like true I formation, 2 tight ends, no motion, run the ball down your throat, but running the ball more, being under center, doing those type of things because of this too high safety and lighter edge players in the NFL. Offenses are now learning, hey, we need to go back and start taking advantage of this. But what you're getting is you're still getting the success of some of the spread air raid concepts, and these OCs are trying to marry the two. The problem I've got with that is what McVay and Shanahan especially have done so well, and I think Kevin O'Connell's now struggling with it a little bit too, is they have really stayed true to the concepts of the West Coast offense in their passing games. If you look at McVay and Shanahan, they haven't gotten really cute and fancy and gotten to heavy drop back situations. Even with Stafford, McVay hasn't. He's put Stafford more in the boot package than he has as a true drop back guy.
Right.
And that's what the boot and what a lot of, football fans sometimes don't understand about the boot and how it changes the defense is everyone's angles, everyone's landmarks on defense change when your quarterback is now outside the hash because all the routes change and where their landmarks are. And so it stresses a defense having to roll coverage in a play where they can't line up and communicate it because they can see it. It's happening in real time. And that's why you see a lot of the McVay and Shanahan stuff work so well is there's guys open because the zone doesn't roll properly to its landmark because now it's being stressed in a way that it wouldn't be on a traditional straight drop pack, everything going vertical to then horizontal. So that's where I look at it that way. Mike, the other thing we can, I guess, kind of talk about is the one snap of Jalen Milroe.
Yeah.
Like having gone back and watched that sequence, and I see what the play is, and Mike talked about it because I asked about it today. And he said he made the right play. To me, it like Walker is sort of open, but he's not open because the 49ers play it well. So I rather Jalen ate it like he did. But my whole thing isn't even with what Jalen did or the play. It is the decision to do that then. You haven't sustained anything except one drive at that point. You're not up 17-3. You're still locked. Like, just your offense needs to play. It needs to play as a unit. Don't just sprinkle in this random play here, which as soon as you did, the 49ers knew it was a two-way go. It was either throw the bubble or he's going to run it up the middle. And so if you're going to put Jalen in for that at that particular moment, just have it be a traditional actual pass. Maybe boot him so he's now stressing them, but don't run it as like a gimmick offensive play where it's only two options.
Yeah, I didn't understand it. And again, I think you nailed it. Like, yeah, you can make a case. Maybe Walker can make a guy miss, but that also looked like it could have easily been a loss for a yard or two, right? Like, I think Jalen Milroe made the right decision. I always assumed we would first see Jalen Milroe on a 2nd and 1, a 3rd and 1. Let's give him a QB sneak. Let's give him a tush push. Let's get that first down, get the crowd going, like that excitement, like just kind of building up him. Like we've talked about this, like whether he's our franchise quarterback or whether he's going to be like a gadget Cordell Stewart type of weapon in Seattle for the next few years, like you're developing him and you want this to be a positive experience, right? And so I assume like you're either going to have him in there for a sneak or you're going to do a read option or like you said, a traditional play where he has the option to bootleg out and then toss it to Coutts, who he's comfortable with, or Arroyo, Barner, like just a simple play. And hey, if it's not there, try and run for a few yards or throw it out of bounds. And just to have a weird, like, hey, you've got, I don't know. It felt weird. The timing felt weird. We talked about this yesterday, but you had a nice 18-yard reception to JSN. You've had a couple good runs. Obviously, you hadn't broken out yet, but you were moving the 49ers. You were moving them. You felt it. And it just felt like yeah, sure. If you want to run a play where there's maybe like a jet sweep and he has an option to counter and run out to the outside, that's something. But you literally just like, hey, K9's going to run out to the left, but run straight into the middle. It felt odd. Again, I feel like there needs to be a very specific, like, sure, if you want to have him get 6 to 8 plays a game, it needs to be based on those types of options that we just talked about. Like, I want to wait a month or so before I say, hey, here's a play action and take a shot deep. Like, nice and easy. Like, we're leaning, we're building you up to more baby steps, and that's what they preached all year, all off season. And then to see that was just odd. And then it's like, all right, cool, you're done. Like, we're not even dealing with you anymore. It was just, again, it looked like they had a toy and they didn't know how to use it.
So I'm going to say something, and obviously I don't know what, but from a coaching perspective, and I've been in a similar situation when you have these athletic players, and there's a lot of people that think, well, the way you're going to use them and how you're going to get them on the field and stuff. And I've had quarterbacks like this where I've had a very solid, good quarterback, and then a guy that gives you a little bit something that the other one doesn't. The thing for me that felt like was we dressed him. We got to find a way to use him now, rather than actually have a proper plan. Like, we've dressed Jalen Milroe. Everyone's expecting us to do something. So here, we're going to put him in this spot. We're going to do it least amount of like potential, disaster. And we're going to do it. And hopefully it works for the best. And if it doesn't, okay, it's not the end of the world. And then we can see if it works, great. We can use it at another point in the game. If it doesn't, to your point, we're just not going to do it again. But we've tried it.
Yeah.
That makes no sense to me. You don't have the ability in the NFL to burn a down that way. To be like, we are going to sacrifice a down to do this, like this type of situation at this moment in this type of a game. That's something you do in the preseason. Okay, cool. Let's see if this works. It's preseason. Who cares? Not at that particular moment. Like, that's where I was saying, like, it didn't make sense to me to dress him because you don't have any film on how to use him in sub packages yet. And until you have that, it just didn't make sense to me. It was like, cool. So what are we doing and why are we doing this? Like, I don't know. It'll be something that, I think we'll never know the true answer to, but it'll be something to see that's interesting for the rest of the year. So, Mike, let's move on to our second segment here. Heroes and zeros. Give me an offensive hero and a defensive hero, and the same for the zero category. Give me your 4 guys.
Yeah, offensive hero. I'm going to give it to JSN. That fumble sucks. Like, there's no way around it. Like, that was a game-altering moment. But Seattle's not even remotely in that game. They might not have scored any points if it wasn't for JSN running around, looking like just a bona fide number 1 wide receiver, right? Inside, outside, the physicality was there. He was, I thought he was really good, making difficult catches. I think Sam threw a nice ball, but I left that game being like, man, if between now and next year, if we can get him, and this isn't to disrespect Cooper Kupp, but if we can get him something real and tangible as a number 2 wide receiver again, he might be really tough to guard. Like he looked like a top 10 wide receiver in the NFL yesterday, in my opinion. And there's a chance he maybe, the right play at the end of the game, he catches the game-winning touchdown, and you might have been talking about a potential player of the week in the NFL with the basically him carrying that offense and stuff. So that's my winner or my hero. My loser is I'm gonna go Cooper Kupp. I think that was the most flat and concerning first show we've seen with him. That was the highlight. That was the film that everyone spent all summer on the media, on ESPN and YouTube and Fox and all those things, being like, oh, they're going to be in last place because they got Cooper Kupp. He's washed, right? Like, and we were all like, no, you just wait and see. Like, what we're hearing in training camp and what he's bringing. And man, it's just one game, but that was rough. Like, that third down miss just really was a bummer. And again, he stumbled. It happens. That ball still hit him in the hands. We've seen a lot of more difficult plays by him that he's made. And then that out route, I have to go back and take a look at it. Did he run it shallow enough? Could he have gotten the first down? I don't know, but it just feels like that's the type of play. Cooper Kupp's not going to be a yard short. He's going to make sure he gets that first down, and who knows what would have happened there. But again, that receiving core looked horrific. And I expect more from him, but that was very much a zero performance, in my opinion, on the offensive side.
All right, so you took the easiest hero, Mike. I'm just so disappointed in you for doing that.
I'm sorry.
For me, hero wise, I'm gonna go Charles Cross. I thought Cross played really well in that game. I know he wasn't matched up with Bosa a lot, but he held his own on all the pass rush. I didn't see a lot of help a lot of the time for Charles Cross. He did a really good job. Again, I think he proves again why he's going to be the next guy getting a contract extension, even though it'll probably be next year. So on offense, I'd go Charles Cross. Defensively for me, who's my hero is Julian Love. Julian Love played a phenomenal game. He played, like, to me, a top 10 NFL safety. 10 tackles, a sack, all around the ball, all game long. Like, Julian Love might go down as one of the best free agent signings that John Schneider has had. We talk about Cliff Averill, Michael Bennett. Now I think you throw Julian Love into that conversation. My zeros for this, it's going to hurt. I'm going to go with the running backs. I think, they, to me on offense, that was really like, Charbonnet, he did okay. K9 looked like, I'm going to say it, he looked like a shell of what we've seen as it's almost like every year he's gotten worse from his rookie year. Mm-hmm. Hopefully that changes, but he did not look good for the amount of time he sat out and should be healthy and should be this. Like, he had moments, but nothing spectacular. Like, the running backs just, Charbonnet had that one drive or two, and I think Charbonnet looks like the better back, but that room as a whole just didn't do anything in this game. And my other zero in this is obviously going to be Reek Woolen. Like,
he's my 0-2 on defense.
Like, it's hard. Everyone else played. Actually, you know what? I'll change mine. You know who was one of my other guys that I would say that didn't play as well? And I don't know if he's a zero, but I'd say drastically underperformed is Tyrese Knight. Tyrese Knight did not look good yesterday. Watching the game back again, I did not really. Tyrese Knight looked kind of slow, and it was interesting to see how much they used Drake Thomas yesterday in the actual just base look defense, how much he played. Like, Knight looked like he was struggling a lot. And he could still be dealing with the injury or the health concerns he was having in camp. One thing I will say, honorable mention for the heroes, the special teams. I was so worried about special teams in the preseason that I was saying, hey, Jay Harbaugh's, his seat's getting a little warm. Like, it's getting kind of hot now. That unit did really well yesterday. I was actually generally really impressed with our special teams, which I was not expecting to be able to say. So those are our heroes and zeros, guys, and this will be a regular segment. So, Mike, here's an interesting one. Let's go to this for you.
Okay. What
was your turning point? Where did you feel this game turned?
I think we kind of talked about it, but I think you got to go back to the JSN fumble, right? You're in the third quarter, I believe, right? Or that was that early fourth quarter. I'm trying to remember where we were at on that one. But let's see where we at on the fumble. You're the fourth quarter, 2.5 minutes in on there. You got, first play of the fourth quarter. You're 2nd and 8 at San Francisco 45, right? JSN starting to go in. Looks like he's going to get a first down there. You're going to be in field goal range, right? With a few yards. Okay, and that's where you kind of get to a point where you're about to make it maybe a 13-7 game. Who knows? Maybe you go down and score and it's 17-7, and you're essentially icing the game. And as great as JSN played, he is my hero. That was a big, brutal turnover because it allowed the 49ers to go down, do an 11-play drive, take 5 minutes off the clock, get the field goal. And I think what sucked the most is it took away all the momentum that the offense was trying to get into rhythm. And I feel like the best way to describe what we saw yesterday on the offense was just like starting the key and you're just trying to get it to turn over and it just couldn't get rolling, right? There was a couple moments where you heard it, right? That touchdown, a nice play to JSN, like sporadically was there. But they go down and score, and then you go out and do a negative 6 yard 3 and out, right? And it just felt like, oh man, we're gonna blow this, aren't they? And then they tried to blow it with an interception, and just I'm gonna go. That's my turning point. I understand where everyone else is gonna go with their turning points, and I'll tee that up for you if you want to go that route. But I think that is a moment where Seattle's gonna have the ball 1st and 10 around the 40-yard line. You feel that you're squeezing the life out of the 49ers. At that moment, you hadn't been, you'd been beaten in the time of possession, but you're about to kind of level the playing field, and you're going to give your defense some time to rest. And just coming out of that fourth quarter, and it just was such a gut. I felt like when that moment happened, I was like, oh man, are we going to lose this game? A game that felt like we had, and turned out to be yes.
So for me, it's the drive right after Josh Jobs' interception. That was my massive turning point in this. And I know some people would talk about the strip sack and all that, but for me, like, not coming out of that drive after we get that interception, because at the point of the interception, we're up 13-10. We go down the field. We, instead of kicking the field goal, get a touchdown out of that drive. We win that football game. It doesn't matter that they go down the field and Woolen has a brain fart and in 2 plays and screws us in that sense. We win the game. Like it's that. And that's why for me, and we'll talk about it next, that even the sequence of plays though in that drive. So let's just talk about it. So they get the ball, they're at the 47. So it's an 8-yard run by Walker. Cool. Then you get the scramble for Donald for 5 first down. Then you're back to Walker for another 5-yard run. Then it's a 7-yard run to,
dude, you're taking their soul right now.
You are. And then it's a 4-yard run. And then
which is fine.
Which is fine. And then it's first down again. So then or 2nd and 6. So you take a minus 1-yard run. Okay, there's 4 minutes at this point and 15 seconds on the clock. Then you throw the pass 6 yards and you get within 1. Mm-hmm. You have literally on that drive gone 8, 5, 5, 7, 4. You should have been able to run the ball for the first down at that point, regardless if they knew it was coming. You should have been able to run the ball for 1 yard.
How does Charbonnet get 7 yards and then you pull him out?
That's the other thing I don't understand in that sequence. Is like, okay, great, Ken, you went 8, 5, and 5. Sharp goes for 7. It should have been Sharp again. Like,
give him a couple,
2. Like you just gave Ken 3, give Charbonnet, 3, and then see where you're at. Because it was back to Ken, and then it went 4 to -1, and then you had the pass. But like, that's why it's so frustrating to me. As you off that Job, the momentum's there. You're getting into at the point of you kicking that field goal, there was 3 minutes and 24 seconds left.
Right.
If you get the first down and you still take more off that clock, you are pounding it down their throat. This is the identity we talked about. Run the ball down the other team's throat. Finish it now. It was like we were standing there 4th and 1, and we had our foot on the 49ers' throat, and we let off. We literally took our foot off, and we're like, oh, they're dealt with. And they got back up and clubbed us over the back of the head with a bat and ended the game. That's what it felt like in a street fight. Was you turned your back on that guy because you thought he was down and out instead of just finishing the job. And that's what these divisional games are. They're a street fight. You have to finish it. When it's there, finish the job.
No, I completely agree. And just looking at this play call, like you see why Mike Macdonald brought in Kubiak, right? 8, 5, 5, 7. Like, yeah, there is no home run. We didn't hit any home runs on the running game, but we were taking their soul. And as you know, as a coach, like there's something far more demoralizing about 8, 7, 5, 5, right? Like than a one, home run hit, right? Where it's like, we made a mistake or something. Like, no, that's just them. That's just bully ball. And that's just us puffing our chest and pushing the 49ers into the dirt, right? And that, I think going back as when I was 8 years old playing junior tackle football, 5 yards of play, you do 5 yards of play, you'll never be stopped, right? Like that's taught from the very beginning of running the football, and you were accomplishing that. And then as you get older, like, and you develop this scheme with the 49ers, like the time was there. It was screaming for you for a play action dump off to a tight end, like, or to a fullback, like, especially after, Charbonnet got that 7-yard run and then Kenneth Walker gets 4, 2nd and 6 at the 28. Where's that play action right there? Right? Like I just don't. I know we kind of hammered on Clint a little bit, and he probably deserves it a little bit more still. But like that's the drive. We're 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 running plays in a row. Like I feel like they just got so in their head of like, oh, Saleh knows that play action's coming. Oh, Kyle knows what we're gonna do, and he's telling Saleh this is what I would do. And like again, I wish we could be a fly on the wall of what that conversation was like going into it and stuff. But where was that play action? Why wasn't Charbonnet like again 12 carries for 47 yards? That's nothing to write home about exactly, but like that is tangible. That is something you can build on. And that is where you needed to be the more physical guy. Like you have the ball, you're up 3 in the final 4 minutes. It's the 4-minute drill. It's literally the time where it's, hey, they're more tired than we are. Let's put in our biggest bruisers and our biggest bullies. Put Robbie Oates in there. Put Charbonnet in there. Be decisive and go straight ahead, because that's probably what the whole 49ers defense is thinking that's going to happen. And then that's where you do that play action if you want to and stuff. And again, I'm not trying to make this all about X's and O's, but like you're right. That is just a massive turning point. And I know Mike talked about it, 4th and 1, right? And sure, maybe it was a full yard. You just see the quote where Mike says, on my play sheet, it says to go for it. Like, I just find that to be very interesting. When have you ever heard a coach say that? It was on my, it's probably been since Jeff Fisher? Like that era of coaches, like, yeah, the play sheet said mathematically it makes sense to go for it, but I decided not to. And it has created this whole vibe that Mike Macdonald doesn't trust his offense. And it's hard to disagree with it from what we saw yesterday. And again, like you said, you get that first down there, you're with it, you're inside the 25, you're getting near the red zone. At worst case, you run the ball 3 straight times and you don't get a first down. It's probably right at about a 3-minute mark, give or take a few seconds, no timeouts. It just changes the dynamic of the game. There's no more timeouts for them. Everything they're trying to do is to avoid the middle of the field. And it just feels like you kind of squeezed you probably added another 15% chance win probability there. Or you just go freaking score a touchdown. Like you said, you put the game away. And it's just so disappointing that happened.
And that's where, for me, like, as a Mike Macdonald has to be able to make that, trust his team to do that. Trust your guys to go do that. And
it's week 1. It's not even like week 12 where it's like, if we lose, like, we fall this far out of the playoffs, or like this could cost us the division. Like it's week 1, but it's also the home division game against your rival. Like this sets the tone for the entire fan base, for your franchise, for your team, for the foreseeable future, for the next few weeks. If you get that game and you show, hey, we're not afraid to get 1 yard. Like it's just, again, I'm getting myself worked all up again. Your play sheet said it. And so it just screams defensive coach, which is, I get it, might be an overrated statement, but it's hard to disagree with it with what we saw yesterday.
So let's talk about some of these numbers here, Mike. So we'll kind of get into the number side of this for everyone that's kind of still hanging out here with us, and talk about a couple of the major stats in my mind that stood out. So I'll just list them off here and we can kind of have a discussion. But 3 of 10 on third down is a huge one. Like, you can't win football games doing that, especially, again, you are playing a team that is in, like, and how you said it, the big brother. They've been the team that has, given you the most problems in a lot of aspects outside of the Rams. Mm-hmm. You had, 22 minutes and 2 seconds of time of possession versus 37 minutes and 58 seconds for the 49ers. They had 24 first downs to your 14. They had 10 more first downs, which means 10 more, cracks in some respects at the apple, or bites at the apple, I should say, to move the ball and score points. You were okay in penalties. We had 4 for 30. They had 9 for 61. They also went for it on 4th down and converted both times they went for it on 4th down, which is another thing. The efficiency on 4th and 3rd down for the Niners helped them a massive amount. And again, like the other thing, 0 passing touchdowns, but I'm not so worried about that. it's just to me like the for Seattle, it was so much about the third down and time of possession. Like you can't beat a 49ers team when you know especially how good Kyle is in that first quarter with scripting his plays.
Right.
You can't give them the ability to hang around. Like that's it sounds funny, but when you play a Kyle Shanahan team, when we've beaten them badly in the first quarter where we get up by a couple on him, and now he's scrambling to adjust. He's not Sean McVay, who is by far, in my opinion, the guy that if things aren't going right, he can go in at halftime, completely change his play sheet, come out and start dicing you up in the second half of the game. This is where I look at he's a freak that way. And that's where I look at Kyle and go, if you can get up on the 49ers, time and time again, we've seen it so hard for them to come back. And that's where I get so frustrated seeing, with a run heavy offense that's supposed to take care of the ball, which it did in a lot of respects outside of the 2 fumbles, you didn't follow through on the other part of it. Like time of possession killed you. If you're a running team, you should dominate in time of possession in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it just felt like, and again, this just goes back to why this one stings so much is that Kittle wasn't there. Juwan Jennings wasn't there for much of the second half. That looked like the oldest version of Christian McCaffrey I've seen. You will not be seeing a lot of explosive plays out of him, and he still found a way to beat you because Kyle is a great coach and was able to scheme up getting him open as a receiving threat. And some of that is on Macdonald and the defense not being able to shut that guy down there. But again, I just feel like every year we see this. A lot of games are decided by time of possession, what you do on third and fourth down, and what you do in the final 2 minutes of each game, right? And you look at that, and Seattle got beat in the time of possession. They got beat in third down, and they got beat 7-3. If you consider the points that were scored in the final 2 minutes of both halves, we got a field goal and a turn, and then we turned it over, and I believe they missed a field goal and got the touchdown, and that's the difference in the game right there. Because I feel like you can make a case for the rest of the entire game. Anything that wasn't involving those situations, I thought Seattle was the better team. And that just, again, it makes it sting where it doesn't matter how well you play in certain areas. If you can't control the time of possession and make it count, and then, move the chains at a consistent pace, then you put so much pressure that you have to rescue your team in the final 2 minutes of games. And in Seattle, we grew up with that, right? With Russ, and even in the Holmgren era, they were fantastic in the 2-minute drill. And when you don't have those magical players that are just going to pull, 3 or 4 wins out of their, every week or every season because of that, like this is what happens. Like you left the door open, and I'm not going to call them a championship team, but a team as distinguished and as veteran laden as the 49ers are. They said, thank you. Like this is what teams that go to NFC championships all the time do is you leave the door open. We're going to go take it from you.
All right, Mike. So we're going to go to this segment because we've kind of already done the coaching part of this. I think in a lot of this have talked about these at length. So let's go with this one. Stock up, stock down. What player for you stock has gone up and JSN is not an option for you? I'm sorry.
Yeah. Stock up. And I think it's Josh Jobe. Like there's a chance on Sunday he's the starting cornerback for your Seattle Seahawks. He might have taken that job from Reek Woolen in a matter of one game, and in reality, in the matter of about a quarter and a half of play. I think the stock is definitely up with him. I really like what we've seen from him. There was some games where he got cooked last year. He's not as talented as Reek Woolen. It's hard to find 10 cornerbacks in the NFL that are as talented as Reek Woolen, which was what makes this all the more frustrating, right? But I think that he looks like a guy that could be a serviceable starting cornerback on a playoff team. And that's kind of what you need right now, because the ceiling and floor combination of Reek Woolen, who is my stock down, I'm going to take the T-ball teed up one there, is like we're talking about Reek Woolen potentially being your backup cornerback after one game. Like this is a wild turn of events. Like people can say, oh, they didn't cost him the game, or wasn't, he played a great game. Like, you look at his numbers, really good. Like, Mike Macdonald just said it. Like it's a competition now. And there's no way you can tell me that if Reek Woolen bats that pass away from Tongues, that he says that today in the press conference talking about this being a competition. There's no way. Like, I think those are such critical, boneheaded mistakes that we now have. It's, I think, our biggest competition. I think it's even more of a storyline than our running back competition.
So what I'll go with my stock up is Derek Hall.
Good call. Good pick.
He started to show another gear, I thought, in this game. He, in some respects, he kind of had his way at moments with Trent Williams, who is an all-pro, probably the best left tackle right now in the NFL still.
Yeah.
But he bull rushed him back into Purdy's lap at one point. Like, Derek Hall showed me that, hey, like, he's still an ascending player. He hasn't hit his ceiling yet. My stock down, and it, kills me to say it, I was not impressed with Kobe Bryant.
Okay. How come?
And Kobe, I felt he got caught out of position a few times. They seemed to almost pick on him out of the two safeties in the middle of the field quite a bit. You saw like a couple where Pearsall and Kittle before his injury, like there was just Kobe played okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I expected Kobe to play better than okay, being, how he played towards the end of last year. And I love Kobe Bryant. I think Kobe Bryant's going to be a Seahawk for a couple more years. I think they're going to get a contract worked out. But that's kind of where my stock down would be at if we're talking starters. Like, the easy one for me would be Ty Okada, but he's a reserve, so I don't really look at him that way. But that's kind of where, I would go with my stock up, stock down on this at least Seahawks Aftermath or those two players. But let's all not talk doom and gloom here, Mike. Let's talk a silver lining. Okay. What is your silver lining now that you've had 24 hours to digest this and hear everything? What is your silver lining going forward with this team?
I would say that after going back and rewatching that game, I think you can make the case that if Mike is a little bit more vocal to Clint, and Clint gets a little bit more locked into what got him this job, I think Seattle wins that football game. And I think that when you see the San Francisco 49ers and that version of the 49ers, like, let's give some credit to Brock Purdy. Like, he didn't have a lot to work with, and I don't think he was great, but he found a way to pull it out, right? And again, you could say that's because of a player making a boneheaded mistake and stuff. Like, I do think at the end of the day, I think Brock Purdy's a good football player. I think he's a good quarterback. Is he worth 250 something million? No, and I think that'll play itself out over the next couple of years. I do think, though, that team is on the edge of a knife, and it sucks that we gave them that bit of hope, because there's a chance that they can lean into that and figure out something with their fourth place schedule that they have. And that is kind of what I'm getting at, is I feel like the Seahawks do have a very manageable schedule. And I do feel like that when we see the 49ers in week 18, there's a chance that team's in a freaking body bag, right? And we might be playing like a USFL level team by then. They might have, I just don't know how that team's going to survive 18 games. Right? That's kind of where I'm at. Seahawks wise, when you and I talked about this a while ago, I was really concerned with the first 2 weeks. I thought 0-2 was very much on the table, because I just was concerned if the offense could learn in time. I think everything I saw on Sunday shows, other than probably figuring out who our second receiving threat is going to be and third, I think everything is there to still have an 11-win team, which is kind of where I've had us penciled in for most of the season or the offseason. I think all the pieces are there, and I think the schedule will open itself up as this offense grows together. Because I do think we have a top 8 to 9 defense. And maybe it doesn't end up being a top 3 defense. I think you're missing a blue chip pass rusher. Honestly, I think you're just a little bit short there, and maybe you're missing another player in the secondary. But that defense is good enough to get a home playoff game is kind of what I'm getting at. And I think Sunday's going to be tough in Pittsburgh. It really is. We're probably underdogs, and I think that's going to be how I feel about that game. But then you look at the way that schedule turns. There's some opportunities to pick up some wins. I think there's momentum moments to potentially build. And I do feel like we gave one away, but I do think that the schedule is going to give us a chance to go get some road wins to make up for it. And that's kind of where I'm at, is like, it sucks, but a day later, I still feel like 11 wins is where this team could definitely end up if we get back to what was promised to us, which was ground and pound, basically Seattle version of 49er football.
So for me, my silver lining after watching this game, watching the all 22, kind of sitting back, checking the emotion, I kind of put my coach's hat on, metaphorically speaking, and really dove into what I was watching and the concepts and what they were doing, and were guys actually open, were second and third receiving options open. Yes, there were guys that were open and there were concepts that were working. The last, strip sack of the game, Cooper Kupp is open for a walk-in touchdown if we can get the ball to him. I think part of it was Sam did make some pre-snap errors in his reads, I think, initially, which is going to happen. It's really his first extensive playing time. He's had one drive in the preseason, and practice is still a little different. The biggest silver lining for me is nothing that I saw that went bad isn't fixable. It's not like it's like, there were points last year when I'd watch all 22 of the Ryan Grubb offense and go, we can't fix this. Like, it's broken. Like, it is shattered into basically glass dust at this point. There is no shards even to try and glue back together. Like, it's just gone. I don't feel that way with this. I don't see that with this group. I think they're going to be able to go into Pittsburgh and win, because I think Pittsburgh's aging defense is going to be a problem. And I think, there's some things that, for a guy like Jalen Ramsey, he's been great when he's had to cover bigger receivers because he's been slowing down as he's been getting older. Covering a guy like JSN is not going to be an easy task. Their safeties are okay. Like, if you look in realistically, the 49ers defensive line in some respects, I think, has some talent that is on par, if not better, than what the Pittsburgh Steelers have. Our offense held up until the last 30 seconds of the game when it came to pass protection. Mm-hmm. I'm not, freaking out about TJ Watt. Like, Nick Bosa is as good as TJ Watt in a lot of areas. Yeah. It took Nick Bosa until 30 seconds left to make his one play. I'm okay with that. If we can establish more of our running identity in this, that's going to tire out a guy like TJ Watt. Cameron Hayward is not the young player he is. He is an aging player. And I'm not afraid of Aaron Rodgers. Like, Aaron Rodgers did not look great to me in that Pittsburgh game versus the Jets. The Jets aren't a team to write home about. We've all kind of pegged the Jets to be one of the worst teams in the NFL this year. And they escaped out of that game with a kick from Boswell, basically. Like, I don't look at Pittsburgh as if Pittsburgh had gone in and annihilated the Jets and looked really, really good, okay, maybe I'm a little bit more concerned. Justin Fields kind of did what he wanted against the Steelers defense. They didn't really stop Justin Fields, who isn't known to be an elite NFL quarterback. So, silver lining for me, it's not broken. It just needs to be, the tuning of the gears need to be changed and tightened up a little bit, is how I would put it. And I think that's the way that we should look at it. If we come out of this week 0-2, I think then we have more of a conversation to have of how are we still at this point, if it's the same stuff creeping up. But that's what my kind of silver lining is with the team so far this year. And I'm going to give, Mookie put in something, and I'll bring it up in the Q&A portion, but he made a really good point about the fact that, and it was something I was going to say, we can't get any less play action than what we got in the first game. So we can look at that as a bright side. But here's the thing I'll say, one last part before we get to our viewer Q&As, because our viewers have been in here for an hour with us. What is next week's prescription, Mike? What are the things? Give me 3 things for you, 3 quick things, so we don't take up too much time here. 3 quick things that you think need to be addressed for the Seahawks team to come out with a W.
Yeah, I think you need to take advantage of playing someone that's not as mobile in the pocket and adaptable as Brock Purdy and Aaron Rodgers. Like, he is a statue back there. And you need to get some pressure on him. And I think that the pressure that we got yesterday against Brock Purdy, if you get that similar amount of pressure on Aaron Rodgers, you're probably going to get 3+ sacks on him. I legitimately do believe that. I think that getting that pressure is going to go a long way to, not letting DK Metcalf get one of those big home run balls on you, not get this crowd rocking. And then offensively, it's time to give RB1 the football. Zach Charbonnet, I think, should be you're getting 65% of the carries, and then Kenneth Walker should be your change of pace back. And then my third thing is, where's the supporting cast? Where is those bootlegs? Where are those, motion routes where you're getting easy receptions to Cooper Kupp, where you're getting Elijah Royal? Again, we're talking about a second-round pick. This is a valuable investment. Barner was very, very, fun to watch last year. Very exciting, number 2 tight end on this team. Like, supporting cast, go prove that yesterday was an aberration, and that this is a unit. This is not a one-man show of JSN. This is a unit. And go, show that you're more than just one man. And I think you're going to walk out of there with a 27-21 win.
So I have 3 here. My first one's red zone efficiency. Don't come away with field goals. Come away with touchdowns. They need to get touchdowns.
Yep.
Close the time of possession gap. That needs to even out. And that goes to what you're talking about with run game, everything. Ball control. Do not force Aaron Rodgers to try and play hero football, which he's not great at. And the other thing, and it's going to be a common theme, but protect the QB. Do what you did this game. Just hold it for another 30 seconds, and we're going to be okay. Like, those are my thing is red zone efficiency, ball control, protect the quarterback. And the defense, to me, if they play the way they just did, we'll be fine versus that, group out there. I don't look at DK as a terrifying factor because we've seen him go against Witherspoon and Woolen in training camp, and they were pretty fine at covering him then. And
yeah,
I don't know if Reek Woolen's going to get benched this week. I don't know if that's going to happen, but I think you may see situations where Josh Jobe is out there more, and especially with Nicky Manwari down, Witherspoon's going to go into the slot more. I think it's more of a wake up for Reek to kind of, hey, Mike's saying, get your shit together, dude. Like, this is it. Like, I'm not going to play around with you anymore. Like, I will put other guys and start playing other guys if you're not going to do it. So we'll get into some viewer Q&As, but before we get into that, guys, help me out, help the show out. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the show. Would greatly appreciate it, guys. It, helps me out and everything. So make sure you guys do that. Share it with fellow Seahawks fans. Like, if you guys know people out there that are into listen podcasts and stuff like that, I do have it on Spotify. It's up and available there. So check out the Spotify. It will be up on Apple Podcasts soon. I'm just working with trying to figure out how to get that done with them. It's kind of being more of a pain in my butt than anything. And we're going to have a bunch of different content this week. We've got a couple different guests coming on, plus the live preview show on Wednesday night, and the Seahawks Film Lab with Dan Viens on Friday, where we're going to discuss this Seahawks passing offense and where guys, the second or third options, where they actually open, where the concepts there. So you guys are going to want to see that on Friday. And Saturday, we've got the good old 3 keys to victory for the Hawks. So that's all the stuff that'll be coming out this week, guys. So make sure you got that notifications clicked, the sub button clicked, the likes, and obviously with the comments and everything that everyone's brought in here, it's great. So let's get into that now.
Let's do it.
So first things, Dan Viens was in here, brought in the no limit to the IR designation to return now. They got rid of the limit last year, which is perfect. So if Nick goes on there, we're not in trouble. We don't have to kind of figure out who we're keeping on there, who we're not.
That's the 49ers clause, I believe, is what they call that.
We got one here from Johnny. He goes, talked all summer about identity. Wild what happened in the actual game. 100%.
Yeah, man. There's no
way around it. Like, it was extremely disappointing that our identity did not show up. It kind of played like whack-a-mole and popped its head out for a second, then disappeared again. That's basically what it did in the entirety of the game. Johnny comes back with Coutts and Sharps didn't get featured anywhere close to enough.
And again, I think it goes back to the comments Macdonald said. He might not have said Kenneth Walker's name, but it's hard not to think that's what he's talking about there. And there's a few clips where you just see, man, Kenneth Walker just lacks that decisiveness. And maybe, he's going to be on this team for the whole season, but it really does feel like a change of scenery might be best for both parties with him. And I'm not that interested in spending half the season figuring out that. I feel like I feel kind of strongly convicted in that belief already. And I'm excited to see Sharps in there. And like you said, I mean, Coutts is in there for running the ball in the play action. That's what he's there for. And we didn't see that play action. So we're going to see more of it this Sunday. I guarantee it.
Secretly, I'm really hoping that Seattle drafts Jonah Coleman from UW. He is like my favorite running back to watch right now. Him paired with
That is a
Charbonnet,
fun team, man. Holy cow.
they are a lot of fun. So we got Islam in here. Goes the Seahawks fans blaming Sam for the game is why NFL fans don't take us serious. Yeah, there's been quite a bit of the social media from certain people out there and stuff that, are kind of to your point earlier, Mike, comparing Sam to Gino and we should never have gotten rid of him and look at his delivery, how long it takes. That's why the strip set. No, and a bunch of that's bogus. Nick Bosa made a fantastic play and took your right tackle and put him in the lap of the quarterback. Yes, He might need to work on the pressure sensitivity a bit of where that might be coming from and be prepared for that. But again, to Dan's point earlier that he put in the comments, there were no turnover-worthy throws by Sam Darnold in this game. That is a good thing against a decent defense when your offense isn't functioning properly.
Right.
So WD Ford comes in with, that's on point. Clint didn't do things he felt wouldn't be successful. So why didn't he feel they'd be successful?
I mean, yeah. It's just one of those things where we'll find out over the next few games if that was just first game nerves, feeling it out, we don't know what's going on in the huddle. There might be a lot of wait, what are we doing? As good as the word that we heard throughout training camp, once you get in the heat of the moment, pressure makes diamonds or it bursts pipes. And it kind of felt like in that moment, Clint wasn't there. Yeah, no, good point. And that's literally, that's the bumper sticker for Kenneth Walker. Too much East-West, and then Clint Kubiak as well. What are you doing with that play action reverse screen pass? You
mean just, this
I
one?
hate it. Yeah, that one too. That we probably won't see a worse 3-and-out this year from the Seahawks. I hope so. Knock on wood. But we probably won't see a worse 3-and-out than what we saw in those 3 plays there.
To me, I didn't see a lot of inside zone, which we saw in the preseason. It was a lot of outside zone. And you need that inside zone and that counter that comes of that split zone where you pull your move tight end. Basically, what I didn't see that I wanted to see was the play they scored on their opening drive against Kansas City with Saubert coming across and kicking out the backside end. You sell in wide zone and you kind of hit that H belly or split zone, as I call it. And I call it 31-32 split zone. And you go right back against the grain. You get them flowing one way and you hit that backside gap. We didn't see any of that in this game.
No,
very little.
No, we did not. Yep.
Amy comes in. I'd love to hear the thinking behind doing that play at that time. She's talking about the Milrow play at that point. I would love to, Amy. I'd love to be the fly on the wall in that conversation. That was definitely an interesting decision for sure. Johnny back in. Kubiak needs to take the mic for the sake of the team. This was months of talking up identity. Well, he'll have his press conference this week. I'm pretty sure they have it on Thursday. Usually they do, the coordinators are on Thursday. So I think he'll be having to answer a bunch of questions of how things are going to be different in this Pittsburgh game. We got a super chat in here. Oh, yeah. Super chats are now live, guys. So they are available for you to donate, and they're much appreciated at all times. So I appreciate the $5 donation here. I think the game turned after a couple of 3-and-outs much earlier than the fumble. Yeah, that's a fair point. It did start to have a tempo turn for sure at that point. I agreed with you, Mike, that the fumble really completely swung that momentum. And then I think not going for it on 4th and 1. And the one thing, with a lot of the coaches I've coached with over the years, they say it's 5 plays. 5 plays in a game, and you got to win the majority. And in that case, those were 2 massive decisions and plays. And the Sam Darnold, that's 3. That are 3 plays right there. The JSN fumble, the not going for it on 4th and 1, and the Sam Darnold fumble. Those are 3 out of the 5. You only had 2, which are your 2 interceptions. You're going to struggle to win that football game that way. Appreciate 100%. The $5, though. Mookie's back in here. He goes, the Seahawks have 6 options to get a yard, including A.J. Barner. this is true. AJ Barner did run a sneak and it actually worked. So that's another thing too. Dogzilla in here goes, we spent all offseason jacking the idea that coaching and scheme can fix the O-line. Truth is the players on the roster matter probably more. I don't feel the O-line was that bad. There were moments for sure where they screwed up assignments, whatever. I didn't look at that O-line and go, that was solely on the O-line's performance. I just think there was never a sequence to get them going in some respects when it came to even the run game.
Yeah, I think we probably had a couple too many tosses outside, and that's where Kenneth wasn't able. I can't. There probably was a toss where Charbonnet didn't get anything. So I'm not trying to shit on K9 too much, but it felt like anytime we ran those tosses, it was hard for him to be decisive and get what was needed. Where again, like I felt like that drive we scored the touchdown, that felt like Charbonnet up the gut. Charbonnet up the gut. K9 following his like being decisive. Charbonnet up the gut. And again, it was 35 yards on 11 carries, but it was the most imposing and dominant 35 yards on 11 carries you're going to see, in my opinion.
Ian Victor, who we always appreciate in the chat, one of the moderators here. Have you and Michael noticed this? Anytime that a game that is important going against a top tier team, we always crumble and blow it. I wouldn't say all the time, but there have been moments in the past for sure. Pete actually usually, when we had Pete, we usually played up to it. And last year we did too in a lot of ways. We did play up to it. I think, again, it's week one. And if week one is anything that I've known over the NFL for years, it is probably the biggest illusion week. The amount of times you see teams lose in week one that you're like, oh yeah, I can't believe that happened. And that team goes on to be fine for the rest of the year. And you look back at week one and go, like, look at the 05 Seahawks that went to the Super Bowl versus Pittsburgh. They went down to Jacksonville and got their teeth kicked in by Jacksonville.
Mm-hmm.
Like Matt Hasselbeck has talked about that being like, yeah, like we went down there and we got just manhandled.
Yeah. I think you kind of have to think about this. We kind of have to let go of the Pete era, right? And so part of this is, what has Mike done? And I think you bring up a point, Ian, like Buffalo came to Seattle and so did Fox's number one broadcast crew. And that game was embarrassing. The Green Bay Packers came to Seattle. What was that, around Christmas, Thanksgiving, like playoffs are on the line, Sunday Night Football, and we got embarrassed. The Seattle Seahawks, I was there against the 49ers last year, Thursday Night Football. They came to Seattle, and it took like a miraculous, kickoff return for a touchdown and a last second, weird thing here and there to even keep it within, within shouting distance of a bad 49ers team before they kind of fell off. Like I do get what you're saying. It feels like in the last year, and if you want to go back to the last couple of years of Pete Carroll, it seems like these big games keep happening at home. I think the only other one I can think of that was really road heavy was last year against Detroit when we were 3-0 or 3-1, whatever it was, against Detroit. And that was a game we were going against a Super Bowl contending team. And it sucks that it's at home, right? Like, what are we, 1-7 in our last 8 home games? Like, that's why this is stinging more. It's our rival at home. It's these big games where you dun, 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 like the Sunday Night Football theme song, and they're like, we're here with the 12th man. It's so loud here. And then we get our teeth kicked in, like you said. It just, you're not going to change that until you start winning these home games, or else you're just going to stop getting primetime games. And, and that's, I want these games. I don't.
Agreed. Amy came back in. I was expecting us to come out to a quick lead. That was disappointing.
I think we were. I think we were about to. What were we, 2nd and 4? Right? And then you bring in Milroe. Like, and it just messed with the vibe. I think you keep running the ball there. I think you put yourself in a position to get a field goal. But yeah, that first drive, man, that was on defense, was hard to watch. 3rd and 5, 3rd and 4, 3rd and 7. They figured it out every single time.
There is something that we didn't touch on tonight, Mike, that I think needs to be talked about, and we'll kind of hold the Q&A for a second here, and we'll do like maybe 5 more minutes of it. But there's I feel a miscued misconception of what occurred in the stadium for that game because of how the TV broadcast looked. And there is so much, out there about, oh, the 49er fans were dominating the game and they were, it was just this massive Red Sea there in Lumen Field. And I know some people, Amy being one of them, that were at the game. And I had friends that went to the game, and I've asked them, I was like, I got a friend that's a 49ers fan that went to the game.
Yep.
And I asked, and I said, hey, how many of your supporters there? He's like, well, in the normal area that mainly has the away team, which is, that one section that the TV looks at the entire time. Yeah, it had red in there, but those are also seats that aren't season ticket holders. They're leased out to the different corporations and stuff. So that's where you're going to see it. And the view of that, but he even said to me, he goes, no, that was a Seattle crowd. Like, he's like, outside of that red that was there that you probably saw on TV, he goes, it was a Seattle crowd. Amy Holmes said the same thing. It was a Seattle crowd. They had the decibel up to 107. So this idea that we didn't really come out and support, again, is something that I think is just getting pushed out there by a narrative of a bunch of individuals that want to see it pushed out there, where it, from all I've heard, and that was from a bunch of different people that were at the game that have no connection to each other, all said the same thing, that the Seattle Seahawks fan base came out and showed out at that game.
No, and Greg Olson talked about it, 3 different times? This place is loud. No, this crowd, I've got nightmares from playing here. Like, you heard him say that. And I feel like we're just beating a dead horse. Like, you're going to let trolls troll. You're going to let this continue to be a conversation. If you can't win a home game in the NFL, like, you got to get back to your roots. And our roots of our franchise is built on being a home team. And until you start winning home games, this is going to continue to linger and rot.
So here's Mookie. He goes, no chance they bench Reek for Job. Otherwise, trade Reek mid-season. But Job could have more snaps in the rotation. It's kind of how I feel. If Reek doesn't step up and play well, I think there is conversation at the mid-season point. If something becomes available that they need help with, that they could use Reek as a bargaining chip.
My only pushback on that, and I don't disagree with Mookie, but my only pushback is your defense just pitched, not a perfect game, but like an A- game is probably how I'd grade it. B+ at worst, honestly. And one player made 2 boneheaded mistakes and it cost them the win. What is that like in the locker room? What is that like the next day watching film? What was Woolen's response to that? And these are things we won't know, but I'm just curious if it's not a like, hey guys, I'm all in, or I made a mistake, I'm sorry. If there's anything other than that, does Mike just say, no, I'm not putting up with that? Like, I'm going to move on sooner. Like, if I can get a 4th round pick for him or something, like, I'm going to move on. I don't know. I'm just curious what the team atmosphere is like after so clearly. Like, it's got to be like the Moody thing in San Francisco, right? Like, yeah, you got the win, but like, if you lose that game, everyone's whispering like, oh, Moody, like, dude, get a new kicker in here type of a thing. Like, I just wonder if that's happening yet, because this has been a frequent thing with Woolen.
Agreed. And I think that's why you won't see Woolen sign to an extension here in Seattle.
Yeah.
But Mookie made this point. He goes, San Francisco to Seattle is an easy trip. When Bills fans are taking over the building like it was last year, that's when it's bad. Agreed. And I agree with that. When it's that type of situation, it's a different story. But again, that one section that we always see on the broadcast will always be
right. Yeah.
And Mookie comes back. Also, he goes, it wasn't nearly as 49er heavy, but also the Seahawks are very likely to have a huge portion of fan base in the 49er stadium in week 18. Totally agree. It's going to happen. Let's see. Are there any more in here? Oh, here's one. Guys, I have to say this show plus this chat is pretty fun. Glad you're enjoying it.
Thank you.
Thank you. But let's
just wait till we have a winning one.
Oh, yeah.
Wait till next week when we have an aftermath with Win. It'll be great. Yeah.
Exactly. So, Mike, kind of closing thoughts for you. Like, we'll wrap this up. This game's going to go to bed after this. We'll put a bow on it. We'll put it in a coffin and bury it in the ground, as far as we can. What are your final thoughts?
Yeah, I think I wrote about this today for the 4 Down Territory. My last thing was, this was a painful lesson, but hopefully a lesson learned by our Seahawks, right? And I think you saw a pissed off Mike Macdonald today in the interviews that he was doing. I think they're getting back to work. I think there's things that he likes, and he also felt like that was a game they gave away. And I think you're going to see a team in Pittsburgh respond. That's a tough place to play, no matter what. But I think you kind of talked about a little bit. There's some things about that matchup that is I think, advantageous for the Seattle Seahawks that make this maybe a closer game than what the media, because the media is going to all vote and pick the Steelers on Sunday. Great. Clipboard, clip all that, post all that in the locker room. We're about to see what this team's made of. Did they learn their lessons? Is this group ready to go? Like you said, we're bearing this loss. We'll see these guys at the end of the year, and we'll see if they're still standing, because we're still going to be standing is kind of the message I think Mike Macdonald's going to preach. You go get this road win. You're back to 1-1, and you got the Saints coming home, which should be another advantageous opportunity to get to 2-1. And if I told you, hey, we're 2-1 going into Arizona for a big Thursday night game, I think all of us would be like, I'd love to be 3-0, but I'll take that. And that doesn't start without getting that road win in Pittsburgh on Sunday. And that's what it's got to be. You got to go on the road. And you got to get that victory. And I think this, from the Aaron Rodgers we saw last year, there's a chance you can get that on Sunday.
Totally agree with that. I think it's a chance for them to reset, go on the road, get closer as a unit, go out there, come home with a victory. It'll make things a lot easier going against the Saints and then going to Arizona in week 4. The other thing I want to say and give kind of a shout out here in the chats, and I want to give it to Damboy88. So Damboy's been in here. He's been he's a 49ers fan, but I got to give him a shout out. He's been really respectful, great in the comments. It's nice to have fellow, different team supporters in here and being able to interact with our fans and, have a respectful conversation, unlike some that come here and make it a little bit more challenging for that. So Dan Boy, really appreciate you. Danbo, really appreciate you. Outside of that, guys, look out for my episode coming out this week with Garrett Greenlee, football analysis. He does a great job. We're going to break down, some of what the Seahawks did well, they didn't do well. A little bit more of Garrett's kind of view on it. I got Curtis Allen coming on. We're going to talk a little bit of salary cap,
awesome,
as well as, just Curtis's feelings in the game. He's a Seahawks super fan in a lot of ways and see how he felt. I had the live preview show on Wednesday night, so make sure you guys come in and join that conversation as we get ready on Wednesday for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And then Friday night, we'll drop our film lab, me and Dan Viens, where we go over some of the passing plays from this past Seahawks game. And were there more options available to Sam Darnold, or did the 49ers do a really good job of taking those away from Sam? So those are all the things that will be coming up this week, guys. But thank you for tuning in tonight to the Hawks Eye Seahawks Aftermath, and we'll see you next Monday night. Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.